Another round of applause for Wes. Woohoo! All right. So again, I'm Amanda. I'm the vice chair of Capital City Pride, and this is Jessica.
The Director of Education for Capital City Pride.
And we're super excited for everyone being here tonight. Tonight, as you know, we have our guest. We're excited to have her here as the third, or have them here as the third speaker series in our 2024-2025 series. Tonight, we're honored to host V. V is an accomplished TikToker and political advocate, best known for their Under the Desk. I think I see some T-shirts with that out there. Under the Desk News, and Gen Z and millennial go-to source of news.
V is also a strong advocate for her subscribers, of which there are 3 million loyal devotees, dusty little bunnies. V emphasizes the emotional safety of her audience, and they take that very seriously.
They've also collaborated with so many guests, including several presidents. My favorite, Obama. We might talk about them later. Congress people, journalists, activists, along with musicians and podcasters. They're among the top 25 news podcasters since June 2022, or 2022. Please give a big round of applause for V. Woo!
Hi, gay people. Hi, gay people. I brought you all stickers, too. Stickers. Hi, breaking news, Amanda. Guess what?
What?
This is actual breaking news, okay? Anita Bryant died. Anita Bryant, the evil, terrible woman that got pied in the face by gay activists in the 1960s, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Anita Bryant, for those of you young folks who don't know the older queer history, Anita Bryant was Miss Tropicana. She was like Miss Florida back in the 60s, and she was on this crusade against gay and trans people. And a gay activist met her at one of her stops where she was talking about how she was going to launch conversion camps, and he put a pie right in her face on national television. It was October 10th, 1967, I think it was, something like that. It was in October, but in Des Moines. Oh my God, you guys! We killed Anita Bryant!
We did it!
Good job! Oh, in Des Moines, no less. Oh my God, I'm gonna pass out. That's so exciting. Yeah, Des Moines.
Yeah, Des Moines.
All right, where do we go from here? I don't know.
It's only downhill. Way to start with like the best.
Now that I've scared you, I know we didn't discuss this backstage, but
It's like breaking
just
news.
found out. Alex Perlman texted me, fucking Anita Bryant died. I was like, I'll let everybody know.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
thank you
absolutely.
for starting this. Where do we go from here? I don't know. So, well, let's tell us about yourself, since I think a lot of people have never heard of you. So,
Yes. Well, I do look like all the other lesbians you see on TV. I wanted to make sure you knew who I was and didn't confuse me with Leah Delaria or Rachel Maddow, which happens like quite a lot. So I'm V. Spear. Like all little girls who wanted to end up in restaurant work, I started with a career in theater, and then I became a chef. Because, like, you know how in the restaurant, like, if you're good at one job, then they reward you by giving you more jobs and not more money? So that was me. I was like, this is fantastic. I love this life. And then I worked my way all the way up through the culinary world, doing food advocacy, worked at the James Beard Foundation, was the head of the Women's Entrepreneurship Program and the LGBTQ inclusion stuff. Pandemic came. First department they cutted, you know, because we had to save the awards. That was very important. And so I started making TikToks of me like cooking, and I would tell people how to apply for shuttered venue license, how to apply for PPP, just kind of try to make things funny. And then, like most of us during the early pandemic, if you were working from home, I used to wear like a suit from the waist up and then Nike shorts on the bottom. And it was, January 6th, 2021. And I was watching on TV like what was going on, and having had been a caterer in the Capitol, I was like, you are definitely not allowed to be just walking there. This is not going good. And so I like slid in my Nike shorts under my desk and was like, Mike Pence, 25th Amendment, you could be president. This is your one chance. And that video went viral, and then people were like, can you tell us what's happening still? And so now it's been 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. 4 years. Amazing. I am definitely one of your TikTok followers. Thank you for helping me navigate all the news underneath the desk. Yeah, tell me more. I know you started with cooking videos, but tell me about the whole adventure from then on. Like,
yeah, so I think any chefs in the room or culinary or restaurant folks, people, yeah, couple, okay. So I am really good at explaining things with a high sense of urgency to people who don't want to hear it, okay? I'm so good at this. And I am also really good at like going in the dining room and pretending like I super want to talk to you. So I think those skills made me a great TikToker, because I was like, there's a really high sense of urgency, really difficult thing to explain. We don't have time, so I'm going to assume that you're smart and you've got the basics, and I'm going to tell it to you straight so that we just get this food out the window, basically, because as we know, during Trump's first term, there was a lot of stuff that had needed to get out the window. So I wanted to create this space that we ended up calling a nice space for news, or kind news from a safe space. And I stayed under my desk because, again, at that time, so many people were working from home, including all of the like TV journalists. So they were sitting at their desks at home making TikToks and stuff. And I didn't want to be confused with like them. So I was like, okay, I'll do this under the desk where we can create this predictable universe where it's like a little bit silly. You know, it's that musical theater degree, like you can't help yourself. I was like, should I sing? Don't make me sing. Don't make me sing. And it just worked. And actually, one of the first people to recognize what I was doing, because before I was under the desk, I was just like Spehar myself, trying to just like help people understand things. And I didn't get like a ton of views, but then it slowly grew as you know, really let people know that you're consistent for them. And the White House called my phone, and I was like, how did you get this number? They like know where you live. It's so weird. And it was Jen Psaki at the time was the press secretary of her office, and they were saying, we're watching what you're doing on TikTok, and we think you're doing a really good job. Where are you getting your briefings from? And I was like, I'm reading like 12 to 15 newspapers a day, and I'm like really just reading the whitehouse.gov. And they were like, we're going to start sending you briefings, and we'd love to have you come down to the press room, because the war in Ukraine had just started. And they had watched how I covered the pullout of Afghanistan, and they were like, we think what you did with Afghanistan, you probably need like better information what's happening in Ukraine. And that started my work with the White House. So. Yeah. Just know that Jen Psaki is always watching. And they have your phone number.
I believe I heard you say that you're a singer. So, audience, remember, there is a question and an answer.
Yeah. We'll do a
There
sing
might
along
also be
at
a
the end.
request. Yeah. Okay, so of all your notable guests, which there are many,
Yeah.
who was your favorite to have thus far under your desk?
Okay, so my favorite guest that I've had on, like that I became friends with afterwards, was Ricky Lake, because like Ricky Lake is so cool. And I remember like rushing home from school and watching the Ricky Lake show and being like so obsessed. And I actually convinced my mom to let me wear a blazer to my holy confirmation, because Ricky Lake wore blazers. Like, people on TV wear them, Mom. It's like what the cool girls wear, not like me trying to put together a men's suit for my Catholic confirmation. Totally not that at all. And my mom was like, okay, fine, I guess if Ricky Lake does it, you can do it. And so I like have this moment, and then I interviewed her, and I told her that, and she's like, did you think I was a lesbian? I was like, well, I hoped so. But I know you're not, but that's okay. What was the question? Now I'm talking about, oh yeah, who's my favorite guest? So anyway, then Ricky Lake became a pal, and that's been super fun. But my favorite guest I had for Under the Desk in particular has to be President Obama. And that that was crazy. So he has an office in Washington, D.C., and we were doing like a get out the vote thing for midterms. And they were like, President Obama would like to see you. I was like, how does he know who I am? Which videos is he watching? And I was like, okay. And when they take you to his office, they don't blindfold you, but they do confuse you, okay? They don't like walk you straight to it. They're like walk you all around the corner and like up and down and all around this building until like soon to be known to you, you're in his office. And they were like, okay, we're gonna go. And I could hear him talking. And I was like, oh my God, we're like really here. And then I had to like submit my script for this, and they said, you have to say exactly like that, okay? And I was like, okay, perfect. Theater, don't fail me now. And they're like, okay, and you also only have one take because he's very busy. And I was like, no problem. And also, he won't be getting on the floor. And I was like, what are we fucking doing here? Like, what's... So they're like, go get under his desk. I was like, without him in here? Like, is that okay? So I like me, like 40-year-old me, and they all think I'm like 19. I'm not. So I'm like, everybody in the room, close your eyes while I get under this desk. Don't watch me. This is embarrassing, okay?
Look away.
So close your eyes, okay? Curtain up. I'm under the desk, and I'm waiting in there, and then all of a sudden I hear him go, "V, what are you doing under my desk?" But you need to know that I knew I only had one take, so I immediately started the script. I didn't like recognize that he walked in the room. So I was like, well, it's the election and da-da-da. And then he sits down, and if you watch that video of me, my face is like, because I was panicking and also trying to do the performance. And then in that performance, we were talking about what's at stake in the election, and he's just like crisscross applesauce sitting with me on the floor. And I'm like, dying. And he's like, yeah, so it's just easy, like you voted for me. I was like, no, I didn't. And he's like, how did you get in here? But you need to know, I'm laying on the floor. So I'm like, no, I actually didn't vote for you, Mr. President. He's like, what? And I'm like, my dad voted for John McCain, so I voted for John McCain. And he's like, oh, okay, well, was it your first time voting? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, I mean, as long as you voted. And that's how it ends. And then we get done, and he's like, well, you voted for me in 2012, though. And I was like, I was Mitt Romney's caterer. I worked for Romney in Tampa. Like, I was fully on the thing. He's like, what is going on with you? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, but, like, we did put a picture of you and Michelle at my wedding because we don't really like my wife's parents. And so we just said that you were her parents at the wedding. And he's like, get out of my office. And that was my time with Obama. It was great. And I never saw him again. That's not true. I've seen him a couple more times. He's really very sweet. Yeah.
I mean, I voted for Obama, so I feel like I
Yes.
should have been under the desk.
The look on his face when he was like, how did you get in here? It's like,
oh my gosh, I love it. So
some of us were Republicans once. It's how it goes.
hey, recovering, we're all there.
I just thought Mitt Romney was so handsome. I mean, I don't know why. I was like, well, yeah, he did the Olympics. He could run the country. Like, I was like an idiot. I was like 18. What did I know?
Oh my gosh, I love it. So more recently, you're at DNC, right?
Yes.
We had Blair here recently.
Yeah, I love Blair.
Yeah, she was also there.
Awesome.
You're one of the, was it 200 creators, content creators
Yes,
there? That's
they
kind of
had
a new form.
They had 200 content creators at the DNC, and you would think that Trad Media thought we had like the entire audience, right? And they never got an interview. So it was really cool because I think it was, again, like under Biden's leadership in many ways, which is interesting because he is like older and he's not a native digital user, but he really understands the power of digital audiences. He's awesome at selfies. Like that man loves to take a selfie. He's very good at it. But he really made that was in the plans before Kamala became the candidate. And so I think it just shows, like what we had talked about a couple times was, I would get a lot of crap for going to the White House every so often, and I'm like, but if I were the union leader for the pipe fitters union, everyone would be like, wow, thank you for getting in there and fighting for me. But because I'm a TikToker, they're like, oh, you're a Fed, and you're bad. And I'm like, okay, no, that's not how it works. And he had that same kind of perspective, which was like, these content creators, they're teachers, they're lawyers, they're activists, they're mothers, they're all kinds of, they represent America. And so he really made a space for people who had platforms of all different sizes. There were folks who only had 5,000 followers, but they were invited. It wasn't all big creators. It was just representative of America and the conversations that we're having around kitchen tables and the people that we care about. And I think a lot of that got lost in the way that trad media sort of reported on the creators being there. And that's not something I can help them with. I've tried. Did y'all hear my NPR interview?
Tell us.
No,
Yeah.
I think that leans into the question. Your thoughts about the kind of the new genre of news versus the traditional genre. How do you feel like that's being disrupted? Do you feel like how can we move forward? Like, what's your thought?
So sometimes I'll get asked, like, who's my favorite person I interviewed, like we did today. Sometimes I'll get asked, like, who's your favorite journalist, or who did you look up to growing up? And I'm like, my mom. And they're like, oh, was your mom a journalist? I'm like, no, she was a gossip and a shit talker. Okay, but that's news, all right? That's local, late-breaking news. Maureen was the one to go to, like the corded wall. Oh, that phone never stopped. And I remember being young, and like my dad was a volunteer fireman, and so she had his scanner, and her and her girlfriends used to like sit around the table and like drink coffee and smoke Virginia Slims and talk shit about everybody.
Yeah.
And my dad would come home at like 3 p.m. We'd get home from school at like 2. My dad get home at 3, and we'd wait. And my mother would have notes for dinner, and she'd be like, Vinny, drugs again. Drugs again. They picked him up again. This one, oh my God, throwing his clothes out on the lawn. It was the 90s. It was really fun. And she would like give him the rundown of what was our town's 5 p.m. news, and it was like the best. And so that's really what influenced me when it comes to news. And I think that that's something that has always existed, but because it's often led by women or queer people, they think it's not as good. It's like gossip or local news or citizen journalism isn't a thing. So that's really been the ethos of Under the Desk News. Also, is like even when I come on, I'm like, oh my God, you guys, guess what? Because that's the way we're going to receive that information in a good way. But I think people, the thing that I actually think is a problem with the journalism industry is the scarcity of work. We're seeing so many pieces of the industry shut down, whether it's them deleting the entire MTV News archives, right? Like, was anybody looking at it? Like, I don't know, maybe I would have wanted to. Like, why'd you have to take it away? Or BuzzFeed closing, or Washington Post just laid off another 100 journalists, and people are leaving. The LA Times isn't printing things. There's just not a lot of places to go. So when there's scarcity, they're looking at people who they think are interlopers or skip the line or don't deserve their place in the world, and they're not looking at like the journey I took to become Under the Desk. They're just blaming new media because there's no jobs. Well, I had to make this whole job up. Like, nobody cast me in this. And I'm like self-funded. So I think if we could sort of bring back some camaraderie and like class consciousness between all truth tellers, then we would realize that like Jeff Bezos is actually our problem, not Under the Desk News, you know what I mean? And we need those big stations. I've said before when I worked at Washington Post, I was like, I don't have the money to put boots on the ground in Ukraine, right? Like, I'm not a photojournalist. There are different things that everybody is very good at that we need all of that. I'm just good at communicating it to people who like to watch their news when they're in the bathroom or before they go to bed. You know what I mean? Like, I know when you're watching me. And I make news for that purpose, right? I'm like, I got 90 seconds, okay, before somebody's kids are telling them that, like, banging down the door or whatever the case may be. And so it's all of us, but there is this kind of like, the radio hated the newspapers, like the newspapers hated the TV hates social media now. And what I have found is a question I'll get asked when people think that they're gonna like make me feel insecure is, well, where did you go to J school? I thought they meant Jewish camp. I was like, I'm Catholic. They're like, what? I'm like, J school, like Tanglewood, like camp, like I'm not Jewish. Like what? They're like, journalism school. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't even know that, so I guess whatever. I didn't even know what you're talking about. And I've been in different places where, like, big J journalism is happening, like Deal Book or the New York Times summits and stuff. And I met Bob Woodward, and he was like, "You are doing something cool." And I was like, "Can you say that again so I could record it and play it to myself every night?" And he's like, "I'm going to invite you to my house for breakfast to talk, because I think, like, my generation and yours should talk." Because, again, everybody thinks I'm like 12. I'm 40. And we became friends, and I was like, "Hey, where did you go to J school?" Because I thought I was, like, asking, I'm an insider now. And he was like, "I didn't. I was in the Navy." And I was like, "Oh, you didn't go to journalism school?" He's like, "No, actually, I got fired from the Post 2 times before I did the Nixon stuff." And I was like, nobody knows that. Leslie Stahl, incredible journalist, like face of 60 Minutes and all this. She's like, "I didn't go to J school. They didn't let women do that in my day." So all of these people that we really respect and look at, oftentimes, they just were a really curious, interesting person who wanted to tell the truth and, like, did it in the way that we're doing it now with new media. But it is hard. Yeah.
No, I love that. It's just like it's kind of like the new thing that's coming up that everyone wants to be, but they don't know how to be, right? So
Kara Swisher was like, "You're good, but you know that TikTok is owned by the Chinese, right?" I was like, "Actually, it's not. Let me tell you all about it." She was like, "I will regret this."
I've already regretted it. Yeah, I think that goes to some of our next questions about, like, what's your thoughts on TikTok and, the fun. We have to ask,
I know.
right? We
All
have
right.
to ask.
So tomorrow is the SCOTUS TikTok hearing. And I have genuine concerns about it because SCOTUS did not give a stay while they are considering arguments. And normally they give a stay while they're considering. So that gives me a little bit of pause. I also don't totally love the idea that they're like, well, Trump wrote an amicus brief and said, don't ban TikTok, and he owns the SCOTUS, so it won't happen. I'm like, I hate that whole sentence. Like, even if it benefits me, like, never say that to me again. That's so scary. And what people have missed, and what I tried to tell in this NPR interview that I did that went weird, was the journey that the TikTok ban has been on. I have been, like, a front seat to for the whole 4 years. When Trump wanted to ban it in the end days of his first presidency, that's when I first started using it. I was at the hearing, sitting right behind Shochu for the first one, when members of Congress were manufacturing evidence that was not true, putting up videos of YouTubes and saying that they were TikToks and using that as evidence. It wasn't. Saying outwardly, I just want to ban this thing, and not having it be based in any kind of, like, evidence. And then, when I first talked about the ban this round, and I was like, it's pretty serious, but we have due process, and when we go to trial, they'll have to prove that it's a threat to national security, and AOC told me that it's not. And she told me that she's in all those briefings that Kirsten Gillibrand was trying to tell me I wasn't smart enough to understand. I will primary her someday. So, someday, I'm coming for you, Gillibrand. I'm coming for you. But so AOC is good because she's like a pal on the side, right? Where she'll be, like, out here and doing all the good stuff, and then she'll be like, "V, there's nothing." And I'm like, "Okay, thank you so much." So I knew when we went to trial at the lower court that the government would have to present evidence, and they didn't have any. They had a hypothetical, and the way that they wrote the bill, get this for somebody with a theater education, was a bill of attainder, meaning that Congress can't write a bill that punishes a company before they have a trial. Just like you can't just be put in jail because they think you might do something bad someday. You need due process. And we never got that. When the lower court upheld the TikTok ban based on secret evidence and government say-so, I was like, this is bad. And I kept trying to tell, like, every legacy media, trad media person I knew, like, hey, there's a story here about the government say-so usurping due process, and this had set a new precedent for the president to be able to point at anything or anyone and go, potential threat to national security, can't tell you why. That's bad. And so that's where we're actually at with the TikTok ban, and that's what I hope people, like, really dig into and investigate, and we'll certainly be talking about tomorrow and up through the next week or so, is how biased media and politicians were against this thing that they're not a part of, that they took no time to understand, and that they lied about in many ways, and what that means for the future of democracy and free speech going forward. And I think that's the real story, so stay tuned for my 47-page Substack on it, since nobody wanted to report on it. But I am concerned about TikTok being shut off. And even Joe Biden, who I saw on December 17th in the Oval Office, humble flex. It was my second time. We were talking about his legacy and different things, and they told me before I went on, they were like, if you even go to him, you're out. I was like, what are you going to do? He's not even in office anymore. But they were like, don't ask him about TikTok, because I wanted to ask about the ERA, and so I prioritized asking about ERA instead of TikTok. And he was like, in your platform that you built, you should be so proud of everything that you did. I've really seen you grow so much over the last 4 years. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, my TikTok platform. And he went, would you like to demonstrate with me, Amanda? So I'm Joe Biden, and you're me, okay? And I was like in my thing, and he went, I know, buddy. Sometimes we got it. You're resilient. You're gonna do a good job. But
Uncle Joe.
I'm like, I just got a head pat as my career is ending, because he thinks I'm 5 again. But he was like, I know, buddy. You're gonna be okay. And I was like, no, we're not gonna be okay. But that's how that went. So then I'm like, I don't know. I guess we're just gonna see what happens. Either the Supreme Court will kick it back and recognize the genuine flaws with the way that it's been written, and actually have to hear arguments from TikTok's lawyers, or, find me on YouTube, I guess.
Well, I just thought that was interesting about how at the DNC, the kind of, what would you call it, brick and mortar, the older...
Trad media.
The trad media. Were looked down their noses, but obviously that platform is somewhat of a threat. And then we've talked about how, women sharing stories, helping protect each other, grassroots, all of that is labeled as gossip and put down, but it's obviously a threat if they're coming after it. So that's interesting. Okay. We just had a storyteller series. Some of you might have seen it. Our theme this year was gender across the spectrum, and we heard from several of our community members. Some of them are in the audience. Would you mind telling us your story about your, non-binary and finding yourself?
Yes, it's an evolving story. It turns out that gender is fluid even when you are gender fluid. It goes back and forth. I was like, whoa, all right, relax. So the very first time that I questioned my gender, I was 8 years old in the dentist's office, and I remember every single thing about it because I was wearing a pink hat backwards, and we were waiting for my sister who had buck teeth, and I never let her live it down, because I did not, to get her buck teeth straightened out. And I was sitting in the waiting area by myself, and this woman said to me, are you a little boy or a little girl? And my mom wasn't there because she would have absolutely wrecked this lady. And I was like, that is an interesting question. I was like, you can pick? And she was like, no. And I was like,
then why did you ask?
You can. I was already gone. I was gone. And so I was like, am I a boy? Am I a little boy? So, and I was like, wait, you can't tell? How does this working? And so that was the first time that I thought about it. And then I was hyper femme all through high school, as you are, very. And we call that my lady days and sometimes drag. I looked like girls I wanted to date. I was like, this is the only way I know how to do it, all right? So I looked like I had extensions. I was hot, right? And I was college, after college, and my friend Andrew was like, if you don't cut your hair, you're never going to get a girlfriend. And I was like, okay, all right. So then we got the haircut, right? And that I freaked out because you change the entire way that you look, and as comfortable as I felt and as much as I saw myself, I also felt it was like a death almost. It was the person that I have been all this time, I'm not that person anymore. And so I sort of dealt with that a lot. Then I was very comfortable with it. And then we didn't really have language for non-binary. I would just because a lot of my life was not out, or people I was dating were not out. It was the 90s and early 2000s. You'd always say oh, I'm dating somebody, they're awesome, right? So that was the first they-theming of people, when you would just not let people know what was going on. And then I got top surgery, which I only got because I saw people on TikTok had it. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I think I really like the way that looks. And I went to Dr. Gallagher in Miami, like the top surgery TikTok doctor. And when I went there, I had like a fairly botched breast reduction that had been done before. And I as it was, I was already uncomfortable in my body. So like to have this be weird was like extra super overwhelming for me. And I told her, you know, what I wanted. And she was like, well, we can look at pictures. And I was like, I have an idea of what I want, but I don't think you're going to do it. And she's like, I would love to see it. Can you draw it? And I was like, I just want like a Ken doll chest. Like, no nipples, just like, I want like a cut here, like a muscle, and like this. And she's like, okay. And then I got it. And I was like, that's awesome. And so for a while, I went back and forth, right? Because I think a lot of folks I was like, am I trans? Like, am I moving towards like a more male thing? Am I like a gay guy-ish type person? I really couldn't figure out until I had that top surgery. And my mom is a nurse. I had to tell her that she had to take me for it. It was like a whole thing. I was like really worried she was gonna freak out, and she didn't. And when we took the little Band-Aids off, she was like, oh my God, you just look like yourself. And I was like, yes. And that was so affirming, but it also for me sort of gave me like a lot of peace and calmness, because I was like, okay, I just like neutralized the thing that I didn't like about me, which some people could do with a haircut, some people do with a nose job, some people do with a million things. For me, just like neutralizing that area just made me feel like a whole person that I was really comfortable with. And then I went on an Olivia vacation. You guys go on Olivia Travel, the lesbian travel group? I love them. And they were like doing their very first non-binary shirtless swim to try and make top surgery lesbians feel comfortable in the pool. Like, you don't have to do the T-shirt or whatever you do. And they were like, would you mind? I was like, what? And they're like, would you mind like being the first one to jump in the pool without your shirt on? And I was like, I'll be naked. Because I still like didn't associate that way. Right? I was like, oh my God, no. And they were like, okay, no problem, sorry. I just, most people can't wait to do that. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I did it. And so I was like, great, now I'm binary, non-binary, they, them, shirt off, perfect, happy with my body person. And then the old butches were like, can you tell me why you use they, them pronouns? And I was like, I don't know, I like it. I think it sounds good. And they were like, it really hurts our feelings. I was like, why? And they're like, we just feel like there's a lot of butch erasure, and there's a lot of just like trans masculine focus, and a lot of our history is missing. And like, I just want you to consider if it's something that you would include, maybe doing like a she-they thing, because we have so little representation, and like, we would love it if you would do that. And so then I was like, okay, she-they sounds good. And then, so that's where we are now. Yeah, the gender is both an appeasement of the old butches that I love, and like, I don't know, maybe I'm like very feminine for being masked, right? Like, I don't know, just like a weirdo person. It's just how I am. Because when you marry a woman, well, you don't, but
no, yeah. I have a guy.
I love your husband.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay, people who have married a woman, raise your hand if you are. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. You start getting invited to girl shit, and I'm like, no. I'm not coming to the baby shower, woman, okay? Like, I'm not she, her baby shower. I'm not she, her, but I am she, her, sit in the kitchen and talk shit about your sisters, right? Like, I am she, her, I want to go to Wicked and cry. Like, but I'm not she, her bridesmaid, So I think we're still figuring it out. But yeah, that's the whole story.
Isn't it beautiful? You get to pick.
Yeah.
Right?
I just keep picking. My mom's like, are you going to land? I'm like, no. No, I don't think so.
My husband's a he, him bridal shower, though. Like, he's like...
I love that.
Yeah, that's how he...
This is how we have to qualify things now. Yeah. She, her, not bridal shower. He, him, bridal shower. Yes.
The spectrum right there. No others. Yeah. Speaking of, I'm glad you brought up your wife. I know that I would love to hear more about her and your journey with that process, and also like your thoughts about like gay marriage and in general in our country.
Yes. So, my wife is the coolest person on the planet, like dead serious. Her name is Natalie. She's so beautiful. She's a touring cellist. She's a soloist. And when I first met her, I was like, I will never be able to afford you. Like, there's no way. There's no way. Like, she was wearing like Louboutin heels when I met her. I was like, I'm a cook, all right? Like at that time, I was not. I was like, I can make you food, but I cannot take you out to dinner. Like that's how it was. And we met in a community theater production of Jesus Christ Superstar. She was literally on tour with Michael Bublé. This is in DC, and she wanted to take a break, and she was trying to like make friends locally because she's like always been on tour and doing all this stuff. So she tried out this little community theater thing. I was trying to like get my confidence back after like a weird breakup, and I was like, I'm gonna try out for this musical theater thing. I got cast as Judas. She got cast in the show. They were like, "Why are you so good, Natalie?" And she's like, "Oh, I've been Michael Bublé's cellist since 2009." And they were like, "Why are you here?" So she says that the first time we met, she was in love with me. And I said the first time that we met, I was like, wow, you're expensive. And she's like, don't tell people that. It sounds bad. But I just loved her so much. And and then I got a job. So we were together through the production. And I got a job in New York City with the James Beard Foundation. And I was like, I have to leave. And we'd only been dating like maybe 3 months or so. And she was like, oh, wow, that'd be really hard. And I was like, we should get married. And then we did, because we were lesbians. And we got secret married. And we didn't tell anyone, but like me, I had to have a whole wedding. So we had a whole wedding with photographer and florals and catering, but it was just us two. It was awesome. And we were secret married for 6 months before we told anybody. She moved to New York with me. We've now been married for 6 years.
So wait, who
great.
was expensive?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm she, they, I want a wedding. She was like, I don't care. And we've been together all that time. So our second wedding was when my mom found out that we were married and took to her bed until I came down, and she was like, did you write your vows down? I was like, you know I did. I'm dyslexic. I can't do word recall. And she was like, get them out. And so my dad like set up a little altar on their pool deck so we could get remarried so she could come and watch, and then we were okay. So we've been married for 6 years. We're very in love. And something that we had to do for, third time's a charm, we are very concerned about the overturning of Obergefell or about the disqualification of gay marriages by this next administration. And I don't want to scare you, but I do want to prepare you. I worked with this other creator. Her name is The Gay Lawyer on TikTok, Angela. And there are 9. So when you get married, there are 1,138 rights inherent to your marriage. Things like everything from like, if you're sick, then your spouse can take care of the pet, and like automatic parenting and estate planning and HIPAA stuff. All that just happens because you're married. What the next administration is going to do is they can never take away the fact that you got a marriage license and a certificate and you had a wedding and you love each other. That will never change. But what they can do is say that your marriage no longer meets the burden of proof required to be recognized by the federal government, because marriage is only qualified when it is between one man and one woman. And we've seen them already start to place that language, one man and one woman, in a lot of places, or there are only 2 genders, male and female, or man and woman. This is coming. What we did was get 9 documents together that recreate all 1,138 inherent rights. So they can't take it away from you. Because we could beat them on the paperwork. We can't beat them on the semantics and the culture wars and all that shit, but we can make sure that you're safe and your marriage is safe and your kids are safe. Oh my God, I'm gonna cry. And your kids are safe. It's called prideplans.com. It's 9 documents, everything from like how to do a revocable trust to the pet insurance to the HIPAA stuff. And then now we just have this packet that there's one in my car, one in her car. My parents have one. Our doctors have one. It's in our Epic chart. The only good thing that came from that universal chart system. Oh my God, my nurses, I'm so sorry for you with the Epic. But that makes sure that we're solid. So for anybody out here who's married, and if you're concerned, you can do the 9 documents, and Angela will file them for you. Some of them have like a fee just because it costs the state, but we did it like at cost. So, for like $800, you can do all of your paperwork. And that's the kind of stuff that I'm worried about coming in the next administration, which is sad and it's scary, but we are smart and we can fix it. We did this over Christmas, and she and I were calling it the Scrooge and Marley marriage, because like they were gay, okay? They were partners, all right, okay? And so we kept joking with each other about it being the Scrooge and Marley marriage, and that's what it is. And so prideplans.com for all your gay marriage needs.
I love that.
Yeah.
You said prideplans.com?
Prideplans.com.
Okay.
Pride plans. And then I guess we have a couple more questions.
Sure.
One is just, what's your thoughts about the I think we leaned towards this kind of question. I think that's where you're going. But just your thoughts on the overall political climate. I know that trans people now are the boogeyman, just like
Sure.
satanic panic was
Yep.
back then. Now it's
Let's
here.
be satanic trans. Let's lean into
Yeah,
it.
let's just go for
Be
it.
fucking scared of us. like right? Like we should just be crazy back. I think that's what we're failing at. I think so many of us are like, no, we're good, upstanding people in the community. We should just be like, that's right. You should be scared of us. Nancy Mace. I will haunt your bathroom dreams. Like, we should be scary. I'm going to be scary. Yeah.
It's like,
no,
I'm here
I don't know. Maybe it'll
for
work.
trans rights and trans wrongs.
I'm here for trans rights, trans wrongs, yeah, all of it.
But love your thoughts. Since you're in this spirit, like, what's your
here's
thoughts?
the thing. The culture wars are something that people do during the campaign season because it is much easier to get a bunch of people to hate the same thing and then co-sign a bunch of other like stupid ideology. That is over now. Trump is not going to spend every part of his day thinking about or caring about or prioritizing gay people and what he's going to do to them. So that is one. That does not mean that we are safe or we take our eye off the ball whatsoever. I'm just saying in terms of like, I think the bulk of the rhetoric and the hate that you've heard is what we've heard. I don't think that will necessarily get exponentially worse than it has. So sometimes just knowing where you're at with it is good, right? So we're like in the middle of the bad, but it probably won't get worse in terms of rhetoric or ickiness. The other thing is, I think it's very important that you take time offline, which is like very bad for my business, but I'll be there when you're done, I promise. You have to take time offline because if you're online and you're scrolling, what you're being fed is every single bad thing from every single part of this nation, but you heard 10 stories, but there's 330 million people in the country. And but it looks like the ocean, but it's a drop. And so we have to be realistic about the fact that all of our friends and neighbors and communities don't hate us, and they're not scared of us. And we should continue to show up in community spaces and in public and occupy space and be that good friend and neighbor and continue to educate people and hold them accountable to like, no, I am your friend, I'm your daughter, I'm your son, I'm your whatever. Like, that's not how we're doing. I'm not going to allow you to lie about us, but also it doesn't have to be a fight every single day. And then offline organizing is really important. I was getting asked if I was gonna start doing TikToks on like, because so many people are potentially losing access to like their hormones and different things. And when I start doing TikToks about like how to do at-home hormones, and I was like, no, because the bad people watch the videos too. But if you go to like your local coffee shop, this happened to me in Rochester, there was like a sign there that was like Rainbow Coalition of Rochester, how to make HRT, right? That kind of stuff is something you can be doing in your town, in your community, in your gay clubs and places. Put those signs up in the bathroom. We have to be in person, and we have to be out. When bad stuff happens, you have to close your circle, right? And that's part of the grief sometimes too. Your circle gets smaller, the people you trust get smaller, but you like regather your power from that space. So that's my advice going into the next thing is like, remember that the entire country doesn't hate you. They don't. And as far as kicking every single trans or gay person out of the military, that's 135,000 troops. We like literally can. Numbers are down, okay? Numbers are so down. And if we're gonna like conquer Greenland and the Panama Canal, we're gonna need those dikes, all right? I've been to Trump's White House in his first term. I am what they call a very palatable gay. And I have like a fairly large conservative audience and I have a fairly large military audience, and it's mostly because I'm just like, hey, you can come and listen, just don't call anybody a faggot, okay? And they're like, yeah, no, that's fine, V, we'll do that for you, for today, for today. So I think, there's a little bit of that to be done also. And just like with the way that some people hate interracial marriage, which it just sounds as crazy as hating gay marriage, you can't stop progress. Every time that they have tried to stop progress, it maybe slows it, but we never actually go back. We break that fever and we push through. If Trump is doing what he's doing, and some people are like, oh, what if J.D. Vance takes over? I'm like, the Christian nationalist nerd who can't even like look you in the eye? That'd be better. Like, I love that. Let's have him, whatever. Then you got to look at the fact, right? I'm like, okay, is Christian nationalism on the rise, or is the rate of people joining an organized religion down 60% since 1997? That's the truth. So you got to look at like what's the spin versus what's the truth, right? So Christian nationalism can't be on the rise while the rate of people joining organized religion is low, you know? So just stay steady and stay in your community.
I love that. Thank you. All right, last question. You want to ask it?
What's next for V?
What's next? Where should I order dinner from? I just got here from Vegas, so I'll be ordering some Uber Eats to my hotel because that's my favorite. That's next. We've got long-form content on the YouTube. We have the AV Club now with Dr. Shan, who's been my friend forever, who, like, we went to school for theater, and then she got a PhD in, like, queer ecological film. What? But she teaches at the School for Moines, and she's so awesome, and she has like that white lightning streak of hair. She's so hot. Watch her. And so we have the AV Club where we're talking about like the intersection of film and politics and history and queerness, and that's super fun. That's free on YouTube. And I have a Substack that's super fun. I just like I'm gonna keep doing stuff, you know, until they want me to do something else. That's kind of how I feel. And I will not be going to the inauguration, and I'm not covering it. They did try to get me and Ben Shapiro to cover it and do like some sort of cross. I was like, girl. Like, the people who pitched this are big, and so I was afraid to say no. And luckily, they like realized what a mistake it was to have that. But they were trying to bring back like the Tucker Carlson, Jon Stewart thing. I was like, oh no, girl, we are way past that. That's also, I don't want Ben Shapiro's people knowing my name. Like, I don't need to be there with him. I'm very scared. I can't do that. So I am taking this year to really like reflect. Not everything has to be hard and has to be like you at the front of the line. One of the things I loved about cooking was all the time I would spend like chopping carrots and onions and stuff. Just like your thoughts and something you could cut. Like, get into cooking, you know? Chop it up. And that's what I'm planning to do right now, because every single day, we already know, every single day you wake up from January 20th until whenever, you will be hit with 4 to 5 absolute batshit crazy nutso things. They are intended to trigger you. They are intended to shut you down and exhaust you. And that comes from both sides. That's not just the Trump administration trying to exhaust you. That comes from the media, too. You don't have to know everything. You won't know everything. Keep yourself smart on the stuff that matters to you. And like I said, in this period of what I am considering a period of grief in many ways, we lost something. There was a loss here. You keep your circle small and you take care of your folks and your local news and your gossip. Talk more shit in 2025, okay? And if you have some hot gossip, you can email me at hello@underthedesknews.com, because I love other people's gossip. Like, if your mother-in-law does something weird, write to me, okay? I need to know. We'll read it on the podcast.
Well, we want more V for sure, so we'd love to continue to see that. And how do you feel about opening up to some questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
No one forget, she said she sings.
Who wants to go first? Who's got a question? Oh, I see a couple hands pop up. All right,
I'm so glad so many of y'all
We're
came
making
out.
our
This
way.
is
I have
like
short legs,
crazy.
sorry.
All right, we'll go right
Normally
here.
I'm just looking at my phone. I never get to like see real people, you know?
Okay, so I have 3 children, very different children, and I'm kind of a unique person in this way. I have a 30-year-old cishet, pregnant. She was kind of a STEM kid. I have a 19-year-old musical theater student, a non-binary lesbian, and then a 12-year-old boy who sometimes I have to say things like, how do you know who Andrew Tate is?
Oh, no.
and he says things like, he has a Bugatti.
Oh,
what
God.
would your advice to me be for guiding each of them?
Yeah, so your 30-year-old who's pregnant and she's gone. We've lost her.
Actually, I think she's good. She's pretty liberal.
She's good. We've lost
her husband might.
Perfect.
We're working on him.
Your 19-year-old child needs to know that they have a foundational space for security at home, because in particular in theater, every single thing about you is torn down and evaluated. And it's a very toxic world, but it's also like for theater people, we can't do anything else. And I think it does create a really strong sense of resilience. Like, a lot of this crap that I get online, I'm like, you have no idea. I used to stand in front of like full adults as a child who'd be like, your tooth is not right for this role. And I'd be like, thank you. Or I hate the sound of your voice. Thank you so much. So I think the theater kid, let them be their own weirdo self, and when they need to know that they have foundational security and they can come home. My mom, we used to be so good. So like if I didn't get a part or something, she had this little Broadway pin. She would put it on and she'd be like, show me your audition again. Those fucking kids, they didn't know shit. And then I would do it. Right? And I'd be like, okay. And then I would do it. She'd be like, I don't get it. I don't call your grandmother. Call her. And then she would make me perform for the family and I'd feel better. Just letting, celebrating them, watching them do their shows in the kitchen. That's how you help them. For your son. The thing I think is difficult for men is that for men between the ages of 13 and 25, they are sort of like unmoored. They are unanchored, and they are very impressed upon by society, their friends, expectations, and the energy that they have. I think the best thing that we can do for young men is show them who to protect, because the one thing they have like kind of all in common is like a certain inherent protective instinct. And if you can show them who they're supposed to protect, then they won't protect the bros, right? They won't protect the entertained. If they feel like a hero to a community or to doing the right thing, or they get positive reinforcement for whatever thing it is, that's, I think, how we kind of like save boys and men, and that's how we did it with like my brother. That's how I've done it with bringing super MAGA people back from the brink also. They believe the lies they're being told, and that goes for boys on the internet too. And so they're basing decisions, often short-term decisions, on those lies that they're being told. So telling them that they've been lied to is only going to make them mad, right? It's like when you tell somebody that their religion isn't real or something's wrong with it, they just dig in harder because now their faith is being tested. It's like now their man is being tested. Now their logic as a boy is being tested. Triggering somebody's protective instinct to show them what needs protecting, I think, is a really powerful thing. And it's something that like the Hells Angels used to do really well.
Yes.
Those are bad dudes, right?
Right.
But they used to also like escort kids who were getting bullied to school. Like they knew. So I think bringing that around can be good. You're not all good or all bad. And when you're needed, like how are you going to show up?
That's amazing. It makes me feel like I'm doing a good job. It gives me good advice for the 12-year-old who I'm most worried about.
Yeah. Let me tell you about men, because I know so much about men. I'm an expert on men.
Okay, I'm Keaton. Keaton.
Hi, Keaton.
My question is, so you talked about the TikTok ban.
Yep.
So what do you have advice for creators, because I'm a content creator, what do you have advice for content creators for the next steps if it does happen? Because, I'm sure the guy who comes into office next, I don't want to say his name.
Yep.
What's your advice for content creators, and if it does happen, or even if it doesn't happen, like what's your advice for content creators, basically?
Something I wish I knew when I was younger is that you won't get just one chance to be awesome at something. And sometimes we think like, oh, I was big on TikTok. That was my one thing. And like, that's just not true. I've been a million things, right? And had really good experiences with all of them. I think when it comes to being a content creator, you got to find that thing that you could just rant about and you'll watch your own videos about. Because you will watch your own videos alone and be like, why aren't people watching this? This is awesome. And you got to have that kind of delusion, right? And then you'll start to, as your light is consistently shining out there, your people will find you. I thought my audience would be like all queer people, right? And it turns out I have like a huge military following. I could have never guessed that. But those people just happen to like the way I talk, and now, I'm getting to learn a lot about that community too. So I think just keep making content in the way that you like to, make it for yourself, and then once you have an audience, recognize that it is now your job to take care of those people. And that's what I do with Under the Desk. Like, I make content literally for like the first 700 people that followed me, because that's how it's always been. I'm like, oh my God, North Omaha cat lady is gonna love this. You know what I mean? Like, Alex Perlman's gonna freak out, like, or TikTok Nana, I can't wait to see what she says. Like, just keep those people in mind and recognize that you don't have to be everything to everyone. You just have to be right for what you are an expert at. Find other people, hype up their content. I spend more of my time in my DMs and commenting on other people's stuff than I do making my own video, because you gotta be a good neighbor, right? Like, you could have the nicest house on the block, but you gotta be a good neighbor to everybody else, or they're gonna still throw eggs at your house, That's what I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All Any other questions? So we got a couple hands shut up. All right, we'll go right here.
It is. Oh, it's me. Sorry. Oh, okay. Sorry. Do I have to stand up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I can't see
Okay.
you at all anyway. It's just like
Yeah.
a voice in the darkness, like
Yeah.
talking to ghosts.
It's like if I wasn't here last month. Yeah. It's like you weren't on stage. Yeah. So my question.
Sing out, Louise. What are we doing?
My question is, my wife and I, we have family members who are, we'll say, batshit crazy things,
Love.
which is why we skipped out on Thanksgiving.
Good.
But moving forward, how do I ring in, especially with like being an aunt is a big part of my identity, and watching some of those family members that are being fed lies and being like, oh, so like, do you not like me? But I thought I was your favorite. So
Right.
how do I, one, troll without trolling, and also kind of ring it in to make sure that I'm not doing what you said of like the beating down?
So one of the things I have found about MAGA people is their biggest fear is being othered, which is why they so hard other people. They are so afraid of being not included or not being able to keep up or not being centered that they project all of that insecurity on marginalized groups to try and make it seem like they should be kept in because those people should be kept out. And it has to do with like an insecurity they have about not being sure of their place in the world or how they fit in or what makes them special. So it can be difficult, but like if they're not a safe person or they're not a trusted person and you've tried to, Melissa Urban has this idea of like red, yellow, green boundaries. A green boundary is like, hey, Aunt Linda, save that for home, okay? And maybe she does. Yellow is like, hey, Aunt Linda, if you're going to talk like that, I'm not going to be able to invite you here because that's just not those aren't the standards we have for our family. That's a boundary I'm putting in place. And then if she still doesn't, then it's a red boundary. She doesn't get invited. So you kind of have this way of doing it, but you can't. My therapist once told me you can't expect your drunk uncle to not show up drunk to Thanksgiving when he showed up drunk the last 30 years. He's going to show up drunk. Like, don't surprise yourself with how awful people continue to be either, because I think that like gets us down. We're like, why are you still awful? I tried so hard to be nice. There's going to be some people who won't make it the rest of the journey with you, and it doesn't mean that you have to hate everything that they represented to you before or even have good memories of them. But if they're not going to be a safe person going forward, sometimes them being shown that they're the other, that they're outside the family's values, might be a way to get them to stop. But that's a really hard thing. I don't know that we have like a silver bullet for. That's all I got for that one.
Thank you. Yeah, good question. Next.
Yeah, I have a question. When we think about like social media newscasters and journalists, and even in the mainstream, but I've particularly been seeing it a lot more on TikTok when I scroll through, is conspiracy theories and how there's a lot more liberal and progressive media and journalists out there who are feeding into conspiracy theories. And while it's like super frustrating and I try to, get my friends to stop riding that train, what are things that you think that we can do as, people talking to other people about news or journalists talking about conspiracy theories to try and, I guess, get people to think more critically about the media they're consuming?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Sometimes you're going to be a lot faster than your friends or family on something, and sometimes maybe somebody else will be faster than you are to get it. And there is no way to rush somebody to a rational decision. So what I try to do is like change the subject and distract them so that they get a win. There's a certain level of adrenaline and excitement you get when you think you have special knowledge. So if I use it in like terms of the drones, right? That was like a big thing recently. And then there was a bunch of folks who were like hopping on quick because they thought they had special knowledge. They're like, there's an Iranian warship. A congressman said it's off the coast of the Hudson, right? And they're coming from that. And like I know that that's not true because I know that congressman's history of being a weirdo. But like, you can't take away that somebody feels like they had a eureka moment. And if you try to do it at that point, they're only going to dig in harder and try to prove that their thing they think is a fact is a fact. And if there's one thing you could do now, it's find research that proves every single point, even if it's not true. Like, you can manufacture all kinds of evidence. So sometimes I'll just try to like change what we're doing and be like, okay, this person is interested in drones. What's something else I can get them excited about that would maybe move them to like a more truthful path? And it could be like, hey, did you know that the arms deal we have with the drones? Yeah, the drones are nuts. They're going to figure that out. But did you know that the arms deal we have with Russia expires in 30 months? They're going to love that, right? They're going to be all over that all night. But that's a real thing. So you're just giving them a new thing that they're interested in to go research that might get them off that conspiracy. It might not. They might stick with it forever. Or you lean into it and you're like, no, the Democrats do control the weather. My friend Shira Lazar is starting a podcast. She does What's Trending, and it's about conspiracy theories. And she was like, "What should I call it?" And I was like, "Obviously, Jewish Space Lazar." She was like, "No," and I'm like, "Do it." You got to lean into it sometimes, but it can be really frustrating. And I think if I can relieve you of anything, because I have this like vigilante information thing. I don't know if it's like the ADHD or the TISM or what, but. You don't have to be responsible for everybody else getting it. You could give them something that maybe puts them on a better path, but if they don't get it, that's okay. You know, you didn't fail by not helping them get it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think we have a question over here now.
I'm hiding back here wearing all black. Sorry, so impossible to see me. So we saw this last couple of years, Jeff Jackson, for example, on TikTok, where some members of Congress can have more success than others. And despite some of his hypocrisies around the app itself, you mentioned yourself kind of passingly about interest in potentially primarying Kristen, for example. Do you have political aspirations, whenever that may be? And following that, do you believe that your current role could help you leverage that being a member of Congress, you could help pass information on just as effectively as others, if not more?
Definitely. I think Jeff Jackson relied on all the things that make, I don't know that it was his role in Congress that made him successful so much as he promised you that he had special information. And that is the thing that's going to make any content creator good, having special information. It's why people love Hank Green. Hank Green knows why you can't eat grass and why you have butt crack hair. Like, I need to know that. That's literally what he told me when I interviewed him. He was like, "You want to know something cool?" I was like, "Yeah," and that was it. I was like, "Why do you think of these things?" You know what I mean? But he had special information about something, and Jeff Jackson presented the idea that he had special information, and he used that Mr. Rogers voice and everything. And those are the times when I'm like, you have to use your powers for good, your dreamy blue eyes, Jeff Jackson. And yes, so I do think that I will remain in politics. I think as far as like running for elected office, I need more time doing what I'm doing right now, but I do think it's something that I would do in the future for sure. But like, I don't know, maybe I want to be like the mayor of Rochester or something. Like maybe I want to be like little guy famous, right? Yeah. So I already decided I only want to be medium famous. I don't want to be like maximum famous. So mayor of Rochester might be good.
We want President V.
Oh my God, I would never run for president. President of the United States is the worst job. It's the worst job. No, I would be in the cabinet, though. I think that'd be dope, right?
Yeah.
Like something little, like a fun one, or like an ambassador,
I love it.
or like on the presidential fitness committee or something. You know what I mean? Like one of those like joke ones. I would like absolutely do that. That'd be fun.
I love it. Secretary V over here. I like
Yeah.
it. It looks like there is a question up front. We'll do the front. Give us some love.
I love your outfit, by the way. It's giving Dune. It's giving
It
rich.
is really cute, yeah.
It's giving draped.
I can die happy now. Thank
Love.
you so much.
Love.
My name's Caitlin. I run the Instagram account Moms for Iowa, and
on. Hi.
I am she, her, no bridal shower.
Okay, perfect.
I am curious what you are like ingesting right now because the stakes feel impossibly high nationally. And what I try and focus on with my little baby account of like 2,500 followers is how to create a space where you can be involved in politics and policy and know what affects your daily life without it feeling like you're the lobster in the pot. And that feels fucking impossible right now. So I'm curious what you, especially because your stakes are so much higher, what you're ingesting and how you're like, you're exceptionally well adjusted based on this like last 45 minutes. Like, how are you doing this? Because everything is noisy and scary.
Delusion.
Okay, cool. Me too. I love it. Yay.
Also, I get tired like early, so I can only do so much in a day. I think you should poll your audience. I do that often, where I send them out. I'm like, what are you guys into? What do you even care about? Because what I think people care about, I may be telling them to care about something that wasn't on their radar, and I'm just adding a problem for them or something. So I think you should poll them and say, you know, like, what do you think is like, what do you want to talk about more? What do you want to get into? Like, and then also recognizing there's a book that my co-host Sammy Sage wrote called Democracy in Retrograde.
I am a
very good.
fangirl of Emily.
Yes.
So yes, totally.
And in this book, they talk a lot about how everybody has a place in the movement. Some people are going to be out there getting people to sign petitions. Some people will just share something. Some people will give money. Some people will give art or music or time or venue space. Or they'll just like know a guy who's actually maybe the better person to do it. Or they'll just listen to you. And so I think coming up with like all those kind of special jobs for people can be great. And also recognizing that like you have to keep telling your people that not all revolutions are won on the first try. You were going to lose a lot of them, but that's how it goes. That's normal to lose a lot of them. So, like, even if we lose this TikTok battle right now, that doesn't mean that I'm just going to be like, oop, I guess that was the end of TikTok. No, now we start to petition for Trump to, be accountable to what he says about turning it back on. Like, there's always something else that you do. And I think folks can get really burnt out because they're like, but I've been trying and it's still bad and it feels like it's getting worse. And it's like, sometimes in the tug of war, you're just digging your heels in and standing there. You're not even doing anything. You're reserving your energy while holding the line. And that is activism also. So I think, and that's what I'm trying to tell people this year. Like, I think black women have said it well when they're like the 92% are like, don't ask me to come to your march, I'm not coming. Like, I'm also not coming. Really tired, okay? We really tried hard. I did everything I possibly could. So I think also sometimes it comes down to reading books versus magazines or articles. I took the notifications off my phone. Sometimes that's activism because so often I'm thinking about something and then I get interrupted with something else. And then I'm thinking and I get interrupted. And then you never actually get all the way through a thought. So I think protecting your space is really what's going to be important this year. And maybe that is what you tell Moms for Iowa. Look, we are digging in, and we're not going to lose one more school book ban. That's all. If we just make sure there's not a book ban for the rest of the year, and we stay focused on that, that's what we'll do. And then we'll do something else. But however that's going to shake out. But I think you can also have periods of rest in your activism where you are intentionally resisting the urge to activate, and that's hard too. So you might want to tell your folks that. Yeah.
I think we had.
Also, activism can be fun. One of the first times I went on strike was with my dad. He worked at Lockheed Martin and was called Sikorsky at the time. And I came home from college to go on strike with him because I thought it was so important that we strike. And he brought me down there, and it was snowing, and it was so cold in Connecticut. And they were all just hanging around a trash can, drinking coffee and making cheeseburgers. And I was like, is this striking? And he was like, yeah, man, this is community building. I was like, no, I want to do something hard. He's like, go yell at the scabs then. When the bus comes by, go, there's people with signs over there if you want to be sign guy. And then I was sign guy, and I was like, I don't want to be sign guy anymore. He's like, okay, why don't you walk 2 miles to the Dunkin' Donuts and bring everybody back coffee, and then we'll all clap for you for doing a difficult thing. And I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. But you find what your little weirdo daughter wants to do at the strike, I guess. But strike... Organizing can be fun, too, and not all of it has to be a protest. Some of it is a celebration of the stuff that we won. Some of it is a celebration of our grief, often, too. Like, hey, shit's bad. Let's get a pizza. 'Cause my brother's
it.
take on everything was always like, eat your feelings. I went through that bad breakup, and the entire Baconator menu at Wendy's. I was like, I don't think this is going to help. He's like, let's try. Maybe you'll puke. Maybe then you'll feel better. I was like, Beach, you're so helpful. You know, men. I mean,
I love it. No, I think everyone being here right now is part of that.
yeah, exactly. Look around the room in here. Like, we're in the Midwest in Des Moines, Iowa, right? And like you said, you have 2,500 followers. That's more than the amount of people in here, right? And I have 3 million followers. Like, you're rocking it. You're killing it. So, like, look around. Be friends with each other. Give each other your numbers and, like, show up and make cool T-shirts and maybe not friendship bracelets. I'm kind of done with that now. I can't make another friendship bracelet. I can't.